Hi guys, it's your host again, Noah, of the Garchomp Daily. I'm glad to be back. I know I've been gone the past couple of days. It's mainly just because of work, and also because my OBS was acting up, and I just could not figure out why my mic and aux settings were not working, to where I couldn't even see my voice. I actually recorded an entire shiny hunting video, but I didn't have my mic on, so you couldn't hear me talking. So what I may do is I may redo that shiny hunt and re-record it, which really bums me out. But with my mic being back, I can now talk to you guys, and that means I can do more. So do not worry. This week I'm going to give you guys a bunch of content. Tomorrow I should be out with a shiny hunt video, and I'm also wanting to go over some of the news regarding the Nintendo Switch 2, which we'll save on, and other leaks involving Pokemon Legends ZA. But again, we will get to that this week. But for right now, I was like, you know what? Let's get started off with something easy to go off of and to go over. Just because, well, I finally got the mic working again, and it was completely a human error. It was all my fault. I don't know why. It was a completely stupid mistake. But sometimes OBS has this problem where it will just take off your mic on your preset recordings, and I made a new scene and everything, and I fixed it. So we're back, and that's what matters. So today's video, we're going to be ranking every single Pokemon type, and I'm going to give you my reason for each one. Especially with Gen 9, being here and staying around, and then Gen 10 up upon the horizon. This is what we have to go with, and I highly doubt there's going to be any new types coming. But with the with that being said, we thought Stellar type wasn't coming. But to me, Stellar type isn't really a type. It's more so a accumulation of all of them. Excuse me, I'll take a drink of water. But it is considered a new type, I guess. But we'll get to that one last, because that one I'm going to have some explaining to do with. So, let's get started here. And again, this is all my opinions. If you believe I'm wrong, or if you have other opinions on the list, or where you believe something should be higher or lower, let me know. I mean, I'm not going to be against you giving me your opinion. I'd love to hear them. But we can move forward here, and let's get started off with Dragon type, which is my favorite type, and obviously the main type of our channel. Even though Garchomp is a Dragon ground, it's still a Dragon first of all. So Dragon types, for most people, for me, if your ranking for Dragon typing is below A, then I'm gonna give you a side eye. Again, I'm open to opinions. You can have as many opinions as you want. But for me personally, I'm gonna look at you a little bit funny, because Dragon type is nowhere near below A. At some point, you just go by its usefulness. And really, in my opinion, Dragon type should always be an S tier, and that's just my opinion. And it seems to be an opinion that most people within the fandom share. Something that we all share with. Because Dragon types is one of the best typings there are. Even with the introduction of Fairy, it's still elite. It can still handle Fairies. I mean, my Garchomp already has a bunch of speed to it and has Iron Head, so he can usually handle Fairy types pretty well. Especially with Duraludon and Archelon. It is, what was it? Arculodon, whatever. You would think we would know the names of these Pokemons by now. But Arculodon, that Pokemon's also on my team, and she's a big part of that, because now she's immune to Fairy types, which just makes it easier for me to handle the pesky types. Which, that being said, we can go into Fairy. Oh my lord! So when I heard Fairy was being added to the game, with the Kalos games being released, I was like, whatever, But when I heard that it countered directly the Dragon types, I kind of gave a side eye, and I was like, so we're doing this now. We're making types to counter elite types, but it was fair, because really there is no real counter to Dragon besides Ice. I mean, Dragon countering Dragon isn't really a counter, because it's counter itself. It's null. So Now dragons are only weak to ice and fairy, but if it's a dragon steel type, it's only weak to ground and fighting, and it's not really even weak to fire because of the dragon, so it'd just be neutral on fire. So really, you really have to worry about your ground in your fighting most of all. So with fairy, it is a good typing. I'm gonna put it in A. I know some people really like fairy, and I still like fairy. It's a type I like to have on my team whenever I can. Currently, there's no fairy type on my team just because I got a Gengar there, and I like the whole poison ghost aesthetic of Gengar. But I am usually seen running a Mimikyu, because I do like Mimikyu quite often. I do swap out my Gengar for him here and there. But, with it being an A, it's still elite. I don't put it at S tier because Dragon is too elite in my opinion. But it just feels with fairy types, some of the Pokemon that they've switched to fairy or have come out with fairy are just kind of lackluster. And I'm not saying all, because again you have a Mimikyu and you have a Xerneas. It's just you have good fairy types. It's just there's not enough overwhelmingly great fairy types to combat dragons. Like you bring out this new type and you give like the Jigglypuff line and then the Clefairy line and all those lines are fairy typing, but they're not the best of the best Pokemon. It's like, yeah, they got the fairy type now, they can resist dragon moves, but they still have to handle with the dragon's high health and high physical and even high special. I mean, dragon is known for physical attack, special attack, health, and speed. So it's like for a type that was meant to be a counter to dragon, it still has room to grow, and it is still a really new typing, so it still has room to grow. I do think Sylveon being introduced helped, because Sylveon can be a very good asset, especially against dragon types. But moving on, let's go ahead and do fire type. Fire type, again, who all remembers picking Charmander or any of the Typhlosion line, Cyndaquil. Fire type, again, it's fire. It's cool, it's red, it's hot, it melts stuff, it burns stuff, it's fire, it has some of the best designs. You got Charizard, Typhlosion, like in Incineroar. You just like this, all of the fire type designs, for the most part, have been hits. I know some people may not fully agree with that, and there are a couple like if I were to choose like one of the weakest designs in my opinion was the entire Score Bunny line. Again, I don't hate the Score Bunny line, but it just doesn't hold as much of the fire aesthetic as I would want it to. But that still doesn't mean anything. It's still a great type. Again, a great type to start off with. And honestly, just because of Charizard, and we all know how popularized Charizard is. And listen, I love Charizard. I mean, when I played the Gen 1 games, I obviously chose Charizard. I chose Charmander, evolving up to Charizard. You know what I mean? But it's just too iconic, and plus it's fire. Especially for the kids. Fires. Older I've gotten, the more that I've started to admire grass types and stuff, because grass types are always seen as the weaker of the three, but they're really not. I mean, I would say out of the trio of fire, water, and grass, they're all pretty balanced. Especially as a supporting type, it is a really, really good typing to have, and especially when it comes to healing. Like, I have a Superior, and Venusaur and Superior and the entire Sceptile line, just those are my top three favorite grass type lines within the games. It's just the older I've gotten, the more I've grown to respect the Venusaur users and such. And the same goes with water. Now I know these guys are all an A, and I know that can seem redundant, but I don't feel that it's fair because of how popular all three of these guys are. You know, Fire is iconic and edgy. And appeals to a lot of the younger demographic. The grass types appeal to more of the older demographic. And then the water type, it's almost within the middle, because it's either you're part of the older generation that love Pokemon. You guys, I still love my Blastoise, or I still love my Feraligatr, which Feraligatr in Gen 2 was my go-to every time. And I still love my Feraligatr. I have a shiny Feraligatr that I got through hatching a bunch of eggs. Love it. Sorry, drinking some more water. Again, it's these three types are too iconic just to throw. You know, below A. You know, they're just too iconic, too amazing. Now, we can move on to electric type. I'm going to throw electric type in B. Our first B. How can I say this? So, I love electric types. But they're kind of awkward. Don't you think? I mean, sure, you know, you got your Pikachu, your Raichu, you know, you got Raikou, and, you know, you have, you know, Thundurus and Ampharos. You just have all these great electric types, but sometimes electric types just don't live up fully to the expectations that they bring. Sure, they have a lot of great hits, but they're not always consistently good. I mean, we all know our Emolgas, and we all know our Electivires, you know. And heck, even Raichu. Now, again, I love Raichu, and I even use a Raichu before on my teams throughout my days with the DS, and I still got me a shiny one within Scarlet and Violet before I was even thinking about doing the shiny living decks. But Pikachu, especially if you have a Life Orb Pikachu with great stats, it's well, no, sorry, not a Life Orb. What am I mean, hey, a Life Orb Pikachu probably be good, but the Electric Orb. My apologies. That a Pikachu can sometimes get. Two orbs, got confused with them. I apologize, but if you have that orb with your Pikachu, it just boosts everything, and it's better than Raichu at that point. And that's why I'm saying you have a lot of greats, but you also have a lot of mediocre. I wouldn't say they're bad. Like, Emolga's not bad. It's just fire, grass, and water are always usually consistently good. Sure, there are maybe a couple within these three here, you know, fire, grass, and water, that are, like, not the best. But for the most part, they are consistently good. Always. Consistently. Electric typing, it's too all over the place. You know, you have a lot of highs and you get really down low. But still a great typing. Like, it's not a bad typing. It's just, if it was more consistent, it would be up here in A, and maybe even be borderline S tier. And the reason why I say this is because we have so many great electric types, like, you know, Zekrom. And Zekrom, I know he's a legendary, but he really sparked my love, no pun intended, for electric types, because when I was using him as a kid in Black and White, well, in White specifically, he was such a powerhouse, and I loved using him. And that's why I say electric types have so much potential, and I think as we go along, electric types are going to continuously get a little more consistent, because I know they have been trying to over the years. I know the entire Palmy line. But the Palmy line isn't bad. Especially don't like how it sounds like Mickey Mouse within the new Pokemon show that they have out. But I have faith, because they usually always deliver some way or another with their electric types. Onto a type that's overly consistent, but not in a way to where it's like always wow. It is normal types. Now, normal types are almost carried in consistency because of your Snorlax lines, you know, your Arceus and everything. But at the end of the day, a lot of your normal types, specifically the normal type moves, are always consistent. I mean, the normal type moves are usually always pretty consistent. Normal types in general have to be really good or they can be really bad. They're consistently middle of the road, but they're good. Like I say, you know, S is the best, A is great, B is good, C is okay. The reason why this doesn't go down to C is because they are usually consistently decent. You know, like they're consistent enough to where they're good, to where electric types are bouncing all over the place, to where they want to be A tier, but they just don't quite get there. And that kind of runs with the theme with poison types, but it wasn't until recently poison types started to get a little bit more traction and getting better. And because of them recently getting better, you know, and I don't mean Eternatus, but you know, you are starting to get more and more poison types, you know, starting to become more prevalent and becoming better. I mean, we can look at, you know, the Oki line, you know, with all the, you know, the three Okis within Kitakami, and then you have the Pecharunt. It's just these poison typings are being more prevalent because you have fairy types, and now you need another counter outside of steel, because now you have fairy and steel, which is a god tier combo in general. So again, poison types were kind of mediocre, and they're starting to get a little more prevalence. Usually the face of poison types, even though it was a ghost, was Gengar, because Gengar was a poison ghost, and it used to be a pretty big figurehead for poison type, especially coughing. Those two kind of shared that. But poison type, it's starting to get better, so it may go up higher one day, but right now at C, it's okay. It wasn't until recently like it started to gain a little more and more traction. It was just alright. Now with ice types. Ice types recently as well have gotten better. But I don't know if I put them in okay. I honestly want to put them in good just because they are starting to get better. To the point where it's starting to impact, you know, the game. You know, the VC. Well, sorry, you know, the video game championships that we have on the game. It's starting to impact that more. My apologies. So when you have Baxcalibur, which is a great Pokemon, which sometimes I even use Baxcalibur with its Glacial Rush, it's just these really good Pokemon are being added in, and it's boosting the usage of the types. And don't get me wrong, Ice type is still a Glass Cannon type. It has such a good special attack, but its defenses are so rough. But when you get additions like Baxcalibur, and then you also still have Pokemon like Frostlass, it's like you have good Pokemon there. Kyurem, especially if you do use your legendaries, Kyurem is a great choice. But the Ice type is really, really good for now, and I think later on it may get better or it may get worse. It's kind of in a transitional period, if you see what I mean. It's where it's moving, but no one knows if it's going to go on the left road or the right road. If it goes left, it's going to be continuously get great. If it goes onto the right, it's going to become mediocre again. But there's always been some standout ice types, and I think ice types do belong in B because they are good. And they're moving, and they're to the point to where they may go either left or right, like I said already. But I think right now they're leaning towards left. Because if you keep on putting out Pokemon like Baxcalibur, you're going to bound to end up with more greatness. You know what I mean? Like Kyurem. Another Pokemon that I think is... I'm going to do fighting. I'm going to throw it into C tier. And I understand this may not make a lot of people happy because I know a lot of people love fighting types. And I don't hate fighting types. You know, I've used like fighting types on my team quite a bit. But recently they're just not impressing me. I mean, fighting types are not being used nearly as much. Especially within the VGC. Especially when you have Annihilate. which everyone thought that one was going to be a great addition for the type, but it just didn't plan out. It favored more of its ghost side, which I'm not saying Annihilate was bad. Annihilate was good, but it leans more into its ghost typing more than anything. At least from what I've seen within VGC. It's okay because it's two split. You either have great or you have not so great. There's just not enough amazing fighting types just to throw up there, to be at B, But I will say this, fighting type is almost B tier. It almost is. And I think it will consistently get a little bit better to where it may squeak into B tier, especially with Gen 10 eventually coming up. And I'm hoping with ZA. I'm hoping. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, I'll swap these sides because really, fighting type is almost a B tier because it does have good. Like, look at Lucario. But Lucario isn't going to be able to that carried it. I understand I mentioned Snorlax and Arceus earlier for normal types, but I also said with normal types, it also has a lot of other consistent great Pokemon. I mean, you got Slaking, you got Regigigas, which I know Regigigas has that slow start ability, but once a Regigigas gets going and you do what you can with it, it can be a great asset. But for a legendary, it is pretty abysmal, which that also leads me into the mythicals and legendaries tier list, which I will eventually do. I want to focus more on the news and stuff these next couple of videos and shiny hunting these next couple of videos. But if you guys really want to see me go over legendaries and mythicals that I believe are good or bad, let me know and I'll definitely make it within a tier list. I'll probably do it any ways, but hearing your feedback really helps me. But normal type is just so consistent on a neutral basis that it's good. I mean, especially with these new generations, they just do a lot more. Especially with their typing being used in Terra. In Terras now, a lot of Pokemon are actually using that now to get get away from certain weaknesses. I mean, if you ever seen a Terra normal Dragonite with Hyper Beam, then you know what I'm hinting at there. That's a monster to deal with sometimes. Ground type. Ground type, I'm going to throw... it's either B or A. I'm trying to let my Garchomp status get in here. This is really a difficult one. Because it is good, but is it good enough to where it is great? I'm going to put it at the top of B. It is a good typing. It is a very good typing. The reason why it's not great is because you do have some of your mediocre ground types. So much so to where it's almost holding them back. Now, no, I'm sorry. I'm moving it to A, and here's why. It's on the cusp of A. It's at just the line. It just crossed it. It just got its passport accepted. It is now within the A tier sanctuary, bro. It is here. It is here for vacation. Its passport was accepted, and it's here for vacation. It's going to stay here, man. It may even become a citizen here. Because again, you do have Garchomps, you have Groudons, you have the Excadrill line, that's been getting, I know within Sword and Shield was a big deal, and then Excadrill within Scarlet and Violet, was getting a little bit better, and then you have the Hippowdon and Donphin. It's like you have a lot of really consistently good Pokemon, and it's like I can't vote in there. It's more consistent than these three, and it's almost to where it's with the three main starter elemental types here. Let's go to bug types. Bug types, I'm going to throw bug types in E. I'm not going to throw in just an F because bug types over the years have wanted to get good, but bug types are easily probably the worst typing there is, and really that's unfortunate because I would love to see a really good dragon bug because we never gotten a dragon bug yet. It's one combination we've never gotten, so I'm hoping ZA they bring that, and we get to finally enjoy a dragon bug. But it's just not great. I mean, from all of its stats, it's just... I mean, I think it has... Last time I checked, it has a pretty good speed stat, but that's it. I mean, it's not good really anywhere else. I mean, sure, you got Scyther and Skizor, but they're not enough. And that's the unfortunate part. It's like, we want bug types to be good. It's just we just need to wait on Game Freak to actually do it. And I hate putting it this low, but it isn't good enough, unfortunately. And I hate saying that. I hate being a bearer of bad news. And with that being said, I'm going to put Rock type right above it. It's not a great typing. It has a couple of Pokemon that shine with the Rock typing, mainly the fossil Pokemon. Fossil Pokemon are always the elites of the Rock types, and they're one of the main reasons why Rock types are so good. It doesn't mean that every Rock type that that has it is bad, obviously, because we said the fossils, but like Bug, it's just overshadowed a lot. Especially it's overshadowed a lot by Steel and Ground, specifically Ground. It's just Ground just does its job better. It really does, and that's just the unfortunate part with it. Is I want Rock to get better, but I don't know how they are going to make it better. Now on to, let's say, Psychic types. Psychic types, I'm going to have to put in A, and I'm actually going to throw them right behind Fairy. Psychic types have always been good. I mean, they've been consistently good. They've been consistently great, actually. Like they're more than just consistently good, like these three here. They are usually always great. Whether you go with Mewtwo, Alakazam, I mean, heck, even if you did, something wacky and went with one of the I can't remember the name from Jim Fine, but the alien. Yeah, no, you guys are done. I'm really trying to remember what they are called. Hold on. I apologize. That's right. The LGM line, and then Behemoth. I could not think of it. And then obviously we have the Reuniclus line, and I know that Behemoth and Elgium were not the most famous Pokemon, but they were still great. I mean, and even with that being said, you also have other great Pokemon like Deoxys that are mythical, and I'm a very big fan of Deoxys. And Deoxys, when I was a kid, was always on my team, especially within Gen 3. Whenever I can get it, I got that sucker and I used them. When they were doing out the giveaways, when we had the whole portal thing open up within Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I had them. Deoxys is just amazing, and when you have great Pokemon like that, it just heightens its popularity. But one Pokemon that I believe is an S tier is going to have to be Ghost types. I mean, it's Ghost types. I mean, my favorite legendary of all time is Giratina, and brother's cool. I mean, that guy is cool. And then you also have Mimikyu, Gengar. Casagrievous, which again, if you guys know Casagrievous, that is a great Pokemon. I also know that it had a Gen 8 design, which I actually liked. It's the and then Trevorant. The Ghost type is just elite. It's always been cool. It's always been creepy. Even so much so to where it's had its own little creepypastas made of it, from Lavender Town to to the Rotting Hand. It's such an iconic typing. It's leaned itself well. And also another great Pokemon to know that's a Ghost type that's always with us now within Scarlet and Violet is Rotom, which is a Ghost type, and it's even in our phone. It's in our phone. or it's supposed to be based off of a Rotom, you know. But another Pokemon we can quickly get through, though, that besides the point, would have to be Flying type. I'm going to throw Flying type in C. It is just okay. It is a good type at times, but Flying type almost seems like a secondary type. Like, it isn't strong enough, in my opinion, just to always be strictly its own typing. It always pairs very well with other typings. I mean, it's most popular being Dragon Flying, in my opinion. Like, Dragon Flying Pokemon is very common within, like, some of the legendaries or just pseudo-legendaries or just higher, well, I don't even say pseudo-legendaries, but just the more higher-ranked dragons, like, you know. And yeah, I know that pseudo-legendaries like Dragonite exist, but, you know, Altaria is also a Pokemon that's got a little bit more popular within Scarlet and Violet, which is a great Pokemon to use now. But Flying type just seems just like a secondary type. It feels like you attach it to other types and it be on its own. And it's not saying that it can never be on its own. It can't stand for itself on its own. But more times often than not, it's usually a good add-on type. Dark type. Dark type used to be done dirty. And over the years, it's definitely gotten better. It's consistently good. It's similar to normal types, to where there's a couple in there that carry it, like, you know, your Darker Eyes or your Mabostiffs, you know, your Mightyena, you know, stuff like that carry it. But but for the most part, all has great Pokemon, or at least decent Pokemon. But it's consistently good. Like it isn't like great. It's not elite like Dragon Ghost, but it isn't bad. It is consistently good, and it's a good type to have, especially if you're going to do something support wise, like with Umbreon, great Dark type. Probably my absolute favorite of the evolutions is Umbreon. But Dark types kind of just need more and more Pokemon, in my opinion. I feel that they deserve a little more attention. But for what they do got, they are very much great. You know, they're very much great, but they're consistently they're great sometimes, but they're consistently always good. There's a couple greats in there, but most of the time they're just good. And because of that, they're in V where they're good. Steel, I'm going to put in front of Fairy. Now, and here's why. Steel has, in my opinion, until recently, has been an underrated type. And I'm so glad that the recent generations has helped this. You know, the recent generations have helped bring the Steel type to life, essentially. It's made it better. But it's always been good. Especially, it's been a great defensive typing. I mean, it's been a Steel Wall type of defense typing, and I love my tanky builds, you know, especially in like support games. When I used to play Overwatch, I always did tank or more of your bulkier offensive type of characters, and I feel Steel recently got more appreciation just because now with you matching it with Dragon, that's just bringing it more. I mean, it's also resistant to Dragon, so it's like if you have a Dragon Steel, not only are you resistant from other dragons, for the most part, but you also are resistant. Well, I wouldn't say that you're resistant, but you are neutral damage to fairies, so you don't have to worry about fairies anymore. And if you have a high defense, then the fairies ain't going to really do much to you. But it is a great defensive typing, especially if you like to outweight your opponents and just take them down slowly and just run through their team. That's the way to do it. So it has a lot of great Pokemon. Again, the biggest additions that I've really liked recently have been our Chaladon, and then the Hisuian Gudra, then obviously I was trying to think of it. Skarmory. Skarmory is a great Pokemon. Another underrated Pokemon, which I really like. Orthworm or whatever in Gen 9 is also a decent Pokemon. And then obviously we have our fossil Pokemon, Bastiodon, I believe. if that is correct. Yeah, I was right. I knew it was like Bastiodon, and again, I've not used this Pokemon in so long, and I want to. But I do know in BDSP I did use it, but I want to use it more going forward because I was quite bummed. Especially within Gen 9. Excuse me. When it wasn't just so easily accessible. But I'm feeling that with this new ZA game, we're going to get some more fossil Pokemon, and I'm hoping another one's going to be a steel one, because we do need other Steel Rock, in my opinion. Something more. Excuse me. Good lord. Sorry for belching in your ear there. But again, I don't know what else to say with Steel type. It's too good defensively just to put anywhere under. Now with the Stellar type, I believe I had to throw in an F. It is our first F tier, and I don't like putting it in F tier simply because of it existing. Like, that's just not how I roll. But it just doesn't feel like an extra typing to me. It isn't bad. Let's get this thing out of the way. Sure, was its overall aesthetic and its whole entire mechanism kind of overhyped? Yeah, it was, but it's still not bad. I mean, it's a great mechanic, but it should have stayed a mechanic instead of becoming a new type. I do not believe it should have been a new type. I believe it should have stayed as a mechanic than anything else. So as a type, it just doesn't feel like a typing. It doesn't feel like an add-on type, like flying type. It doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel right. It's kind of a mixed feelings that I got with it, but I'm not going to sit here and hate it. But I'm going to be honest, and it's like I'm putting it in F not because I hate it, but just because it just doesn't belong. As a mechanism, it's definitely like a B or maybe A tier. But I don't know. It's just disappointing that they made this the new typing when they could have just made it a game mechanic that went with the stellar hats. But that's just me. But this is our list. I find it pretty fair. I mean, if I were to make any changes in the future, I would hope Ice gets better so I can move it up. I would hope Electric gets better so I can move it up. Excuse me. I'm hoping Steel also gets a little bit better. I know that Steel has good Pokemon. It's definitely been getting a little bit better treatment, but it kind of needs a little bit more because the treatment it's gotten recently has been okay. Because if it continues getting okay treatment, it may come down here, but it would have to be something astronomically bad. Because when you have the Gen 8 legendaries, especially when one of them is Fairy Steel, it's like that kind of carries it. Which Fairy Steel is a killer typing. Dragon Steel and Fairy Steel are usually probably the two best combos ever. But that's just me. But I know other people may agree. Some people may not. And if you do not agree with this list, or you want some things that you would personally want to change, please let me know. I'd definitely love to see your reasoning. All of these that I've ranked from my personal basis, from my personal feelings, from my usage of the typings. And please remember, I'm not saying that these types are bad. If you love them, you love them. That's completely fine. It's just for me personally, it just goes by fun using them, and this is how I personally feel with them. But I'll never trash these typings, saying that they're absolutely awful, because they're not all absolutely awful. It's just some are better than others. So I do hope for the ones that are ranked a little bit lower here that they do definitely get better. This one right here, I don't really think we can make better because it's not really a type in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Especially for a type that may only be introduced once once, and that's in these Gen 9 games. To me, it just feels like wasted potential. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Again, remember, always be a chomp above the rest. And thank you for hearing me ramble on and giving my opinions on Pokemon typings. I look forward to talking to you soon with some more videos. Have a great night, and thank you.